Fellow human beings, welcome to Killcast Exhibit 2, The Art of Spontaneity and Innovation. Here with us, we have a very special guest, so I'd like for them to introduce themselves. What is your name? Where are you from? And what is your relationship with spontaneity and innovation? Take it away.
What's up, y'all? First of all, it's a pleasure to be on this podcast. My name is Ferdinand Johnston from Catania. And, spontaneity and innovation, I feel like I connect with that the most on the guitar and, other musical instruments, because I feel like with those, you can really, take in any kind of music, and as well with innovation, make music.
For sure, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And why do you think people being spontaneous and innovative is beneficial regardless of occupation, place, or age? You know?
Well, I mean, if you can, be spontaneous and innovate at the same time, they go hand in hand, right? Being spontaneous, being able to take in any kind of information, just having an open mind overall, and taking that and making something with it, with innovation, right? And if you can be spontaneous and innovate something, it doesn't matter what you do in life, as long as it's beautiful and original.
For sure, for sure. And I feel like, I don't know, spontaneity for us is a relationship we're really close to, because I feel like people in our life who make us laugh or kind of bring a lighthearted atmosphere are quite spontaneous. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
I feel like, even within culture, if you see comedians or actors, or I guess people who are esteemed for their character and personality, lightheartedness and spontaneity and innovation, they kind of go all hand in hand. You know what I mean? Because I feel like the ability to create something positive and long lasting for the world is super powerful. For sure, for sure. And so, would you consider playing the guitar your primary medium for expressing your innovativeness and spontaneity?
For sure, and I think the main reason is because you're not using words, right? I think music goes beyond words and notes overall. I mean, it's sound, right? And I think music is a language of its own. And for me, at least, I find it easier to be spontaneous and innovate with music rather than conversations and whatnot. Yeah,
for sure, for sure. I mean, I think just in general, like, creativity gets to express what we don't really necessarily, what we can't express in words. Like, there's always that expression that gets thrown around, that a picture is worth 1,000 words and whatnot. And I feel like music can be the same way, because it can paint a picture. And even when people, I mean, to me, even when people are using words in music, I feel like, it's still a lot more condensed, and you are still, you're describing things in a certain way, in a vivid way, to kind of get people to be receptive and wake up to what you're telling them. You know what I mean? Regardless of what the tone of it is or what your message is, I feel like it is visual. Even though it comes in an audible form, for sure, I feel like there is a visual stimulus that comes along with that. And so, I mean, a big question for me is, what would life be like without spontaneity and innovation?
I'm afraid that us as a species, right, we're leaning towards a dystopian future where spontaneity and innovation won't exist, right? We'll be replaced with robots and AI and whatnot, and so that eliminates spontaneity and innovation. But it would be a very dull world that I wouldn't want to live in at all. I don't even want to imagine.
Yeah, no, it's pretty rough to imagine. And there's always, like, talks about how, even if AI does come and replace, us, what is that going to be like, and can they ever replace us? You know what I mean? We're still in a state of kind of wondering right now, but with how fast the development is happening, we can't help but wonder, like, is everything going to become mechanical and technocentric? And are we going to move away from, just our connection with, I don't know, consciousness and God and creativity and stuff like that? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like, to an extent, there's been a big shift, and I think that it's crazy to think that our world is kind of ruled by the people who create the technologies that we use. You know what I mean? Without being too dystopian or Orwellian about it, it's just for us to be aware, because I feel like technology is a tool as well. You know what I mean? We use it in positive ways.
That's true. I just hope we don't overuse it.
Yeah, for sure. Like, how would you say technology? How would you say you make positive use of technology in your life?
Well, I guess first of all, I can tell you how I don't use its negative, um, effects like social media. Now, social media can be used
Yeah,
to promote your business and whatnot. However, if that's your main way of connecting to people, like any kind of people, say your family, your friends, then that's a serious problem because you're not really connecting with people over social media. That, I don't know, it creates social, like you can't really socially connect with people that way. If that's your main way of communicating.
it creates a
Right.
dysphoria, right? Like
Yeah.
I just remember myself in high school, like when I kind of took a distance from social media, or even when I was using social media, and I would have relationships with people over these, interfaces, and I'd see them in person, and things would be completely different. I'd ask myself, like, what is going on here, man? This is kind of scary, and I felt like, I don't know, the most beautiful moments of my life have happened out of, just conversation and connection. For example, I was, recently on an EasyJet flight and whatnot, and met this old woman who was looking out the window, and I was looking out the window as well because there was a beautiful sunset. And we just talked together in French, which I don't speak very well, but I still tried, and she was helping me out. And the whole idea was that we were just appreciating the sunset together. And I feel like, more and more we're becoming disconnected. Like I just remember I was actually at a nightclub recently with my cousin, and I remember, there was a lot of people who were really interactive and super, extraneous. And I mean, the nightclub is going to attract those people, but there was a lot of people who also just came there to take videos of the fact that we're there, that they're there, rather than enjoying the fact that they're there. And I feel like that's really crazy, because
Yikes. Yeah.
and I don't know. I mean, the person who curated the environment there, I think he has a great, idea of spontaneity and innovation because he curates music in all different types of ways, and he hires DJs and artists from all over the world to come through and really, really do something special. And I really appreciate that about him because I feel like if you think about a lot of like nightlife environments, the whole purpose is kind of, you know, to grab money off people and not even really create, a special environment, but once in a while you get like a store or a place or and just like a venue that really has become so iconic because people gather there, and I feel like they feel that ability to be spontaneous and innovate and just kind of like also be vulnerable and transparent. It is kind of beautiful for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Do you feel like another element of like what social media has done apart from like dull spontaneity and innovation is maybe create people who are like, there's this discussion of incels that gets thrown around a lot and stuff. I mean, do you feel like that's a reality as well? Like, people who aren't able to kind of govern their own lives, and they've just kind of lost control, and they started pointing the finger at everybody, and blaming everybody for their own problems and their own circumstances.
Yeah, absolutely. Right. I mean, once you become seriously addicted, you start, and another thing about it is discipline, right? If you can't stop yourself from, being addicted to these, to your phone, to social media, to the internet in general, then it starts to, escalate for you, and you start pointing the finger at, social media.
That's for sure. And then this brings about the question, how does one become spontaneous and innovative and move away from, consumption and go to creation and stuff, And I feel like consumption and creation do go hand in hand. Like I think it's important to have a harmony between both of them. So you're taking in enough information to actually put out something very meaningful, and taking in information doesn't have to be from books or even from your phone or from the internet. It can even be just going for a walk outside,
Yeah.
your daily time, just talking with your family. I feel like that's super powerful. Is that just that whole idea of getting inspired from just seeing things in the external world, and not having necessarily to be through technology, but also technology is powerful in that sense because it can bring about that spontaneity and innovation. But how do you feel one can cultivate their own spontaneity and innovativeness?
So you reminded me of a change in music and the music that I was listening to. And this was in 2020. I received a record from my grandpa. It was a Steely Dan record called Pretzel Logic, and it had all sorts of styles on it. I've never listened to this kind of music before, and And from there, I just started listening to jazz fusion and all these different artists that aren't very famous, unfortunately. But with the power of the internet, I could listen to all this new music from different artists, right? And it just opened up a new door for me, new kind of music to listen to play, new influences, and yeah,
So I guess in that sense, the idea is kind of to explore with whatever
yeah,
resources you have in your environment, to be more explorative and less restrained, and I feel like, I don't know, any positive thing that's happened in my life has kind of been out of exploration in the sense of, exploring new styles,
hmm
new styles of writing, I guess, just talking to new people I wouldn't usually talk to, or just experimenting with new styles of music. But I feel like it can be even more than that. It's just kind of trying to be spontaneous in the sense of trying to make people laugh, trying to make people smile. Like I
yeah,
feel like that in and of itself is kind of creation. You know what I mean? Because you're creating a feeling, you're creating an emotion. I feel like that in itself is really powerful. And I but I guess one a couple thoughts I wrote down is, in terms of one, becoming spontaneous and innovative. I feel like exploration is key, boldness is key, courage is key, and connection is key as well. You know what I mean? Exploration in the sense of, as you were saying, opening your horizons and broadening your horizons to the variety that's available. And that's going to allow you to. And also, I feel like it gives us a bigger perspective of what reality is, because reality is kind of some sort of illusion that we've kind of created for ourselves, and it is all like filled with our own biases and stuff. But I think the beautiful thing about it is the more we expand our perspective, and kind of get out of any ideology and get out of any theory, and start to really just see the world for what it is, through that exploration. And the boldness for me is kind of goes hand in hand with courage. I think sometimes you got to try to experiment. Like I feel like even this podcast is experimentation in the sense that I'm not that experienced with podcasting. I mean, I have long form conversations with people for sure, but definitely not in a structured way where I'm trying to organize ideas and give people actionable tools and
hmm
inspiration for their own lives. So this is kind of experimentation. I feel like it takes that step within yourself to say, not to say eventually I'm going to do it, but to really go after what speaks to you, and to go after that. And I guess connection is another thing, because creation and connection go hand in hand. Spontaneity and innovation and connection go hand in hand, in the sense that people create things together, and I think the most powerful things are created together. Like even if you think about the phone we're recording this off now, which is Apple, it's created by Steve Wozniak and Steve Jobs. Even though Steve Jobs gets cited more as a creator, I feel like there was that dual friendship and connection that allowed for this creation to be possible. So I feel like that's super powerful. And I guess another question I had is, does spontaneity and innovation always get rewarded? This is a big question for me. What's your take on that? You know what I mean? I guess within the realm of music or in general.
usually no, fortunately. Um, the way you should start off in the music business is to not be. I mean, give it like don't wear your heart on your sleeve, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't be too spontaneous or innovative because it might be hard for people to listen to, right? It's too creative. Maybe it's too crazy. It's unusual, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so if you come out with a more formatted, easygoing type of music, and you can connect with your audience with that basic music, right? Giving just a hint of what you have to actually offer, and slowly you can, wear your heart on your sleeve more and more, and at some point maybe truly come out with an album that's truly spontaneous and what you want it to come to.
So your whole point is like,
Yeah,
it's kind of that idea of mastering a craft before innovating yourself within that craft. And I feel like
yeah,
that's an approach a lot of like experts, or I guess, really, renowned people from any field or any place in life have taken. You know what I mean? That idea of before carving out your own niche, I don't know. For example, one thing that comes to my mind is there's a fashion designer called Alexander McQueen.
mm-hmm.
He is one of the coolest and most innovative, people within the world of fashion, I guess, to me. You know what I mean? And I was fortunate enough to explore his story, and really see how just kind of how interesting of a life he's had. He started by tailoring and doing very methodical, simple activities within fashion creation for sure. But and I think he actually started off at like, yeah, a bespoke suit place, in UK. And so, he moved from that and took that to put his own, like, uh, sometimes androgynous, sometimes feminine, sometimes masculine and dark approach for sure to fashion, and his inspiration behind it, and I think he even did a collection inspired by Taxi Driver.
Wow.
And to me it's just so fascinating how, but it's always important to remember he started from, not innovating, but really like learning. And if you think about another person who I find quite interesting is like, I don't know, like even Sade and whatnot, and how innovative and how she carved her own style of music. But I feel like she did not start, being iconic and stuff. She started, making and creating music that was kind of not guideline for her, but with her influences and whatnot. And then she started to carve out her own style. And I feel like another thing, for example, is like this is going into sports, right? So there's a fighter called Charles Oliveira, and he's from Brazil, and he did jujitsu. So that was his whole thing when he was young, was going to jujitsu clubs and whatnot. And he had a prowess for it, but he had to learn all the techniques, everything, before he could really innovate and start becoming himself. And really, like, yeah, self-actualizing himself. I think this a primary step to really becoming spontaneous and innovative is to learn as well, and to have the humbleness to kind of sit back and really accumulate and find, be lucky to also find something you're passionate and purposeful and meaningful, about enough to really like just throw yourself into it. So that's beautiful. I guess my final question would be, what impact do you want to leave, what impact do you want to have in your life on society, ecology, and people as a whole, through your own being and through your innovativeness and through your spontaneity? Like, what's your vision? What's your dream, if you really had to narrow it down in terms of the impact you want to make?
Well, definitely I mean, if I had a career in music, which would be I hate to say this, I really do. It would be very hard in this day and age, because um, corporate, music labels, they want to take less risk, right? In the 70s, I mean, you had less risk, but I mean, you just had a tiny bit more, right? I feel like the 70s was the last decade to really see, any like creative music. And then from the 80s, it just started becoming more and more, programmed, formulated, corporatized music. And they didn't want to take risks, signing, completely new artists out of nowhere with a different style. And so if I were to be in the music business, I feel like some advice I would give is to start off easy, right? To not show off the best that you have, or don't experiment yet, right? Keep it simple, and then
Build.
and then at some point have fun.
Yeah,
It's all about having fun.
that's so true. I mean, you hear like the best stories about just like people who are working together, or just if it's music or any other field, and just how much joy creation brings them. You know what I mean? And like how much joy it brings them, that it can bring other people joy as well. I feel like that's super powerful. I think one thing you made me think about is the fact that even some really creative artists, like in our day and age, beyond music or art, like just in everything, get kind of restrained by, not only the public or the societal atmosphere, but also the people who are above them. If they are working for corporations and whatnot, that creativity gets funneled through them. And I don't know, it's pretty sad. Like, I don't know, this one thing, for example, there's a guitarist called Steve Lacy. I don't know if you know him. He became really famous at like 15. He played for this one group called The Internet and stuff, and they're incredible. Sid does the vocals for The Internet, and they're amazing. And so he was lucky because he had exposure as well at a young age, for sure. But I mean, so he became famous in his own right, and he released his own album. And this whole thing is, recently at his concerts, people have only been able to sing along. Like, most people have only been able to sing along to one of his songs that kind of got famous as a TikTok snippet. And I feel like, I don't know, that's a bit sad, because even if you look at the reception that he's getting on his other music, it's really good. but I feel like the majority of people only, know the short form and famous content now. And I feel like,
Yeah.
I mean, that's a bit sad because I don't know. I just think to myself like, that's very away from spontaneity and innovation. That's just very repetition, as you said, formulaic, just putting stuff out. But I feel like everybody has an opportunity to go and really explore, and it's not really about being the black sheep or whatever, but it takes that courage to just step away and really let yourself be and let yourself be free and really see what the world has to offer. Because I feel like sometimes people are scared and they just want to do what everyone else is doing. And I understand that feeling because I've had it before and I've taken decisions out of that mindset as well. And I can say for personally, it hasn't really been beneficial. And I hope really people that just really like individualize themselves and become authentic in their own right, and also help other people do so. That's my 2 cents on the whole thing. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
But this has been incredible. Fred, thank you so much for being on my podcast today. And anybody who's listening, I hope you were able to take away something useful, something beautiful from this. And peace out, ladies and gentlemen.